Here's part two of my chat with Brian McDonald of Rivalry Trophy. In part one, we talked about kind of the history of the company and how they do their licensing and all that good stuff. In part two, we get into some of the other trophies, talk about fandom a little bit, and much more. Thanks again to Fraser's Pub for hosting this interview. It was fantastic. And thanks to Mason from Pack Mode for doing the filming. If you like these videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And without further ado, here's part two with Brian McDonald. All right, we are back at Fraser's for part two. In part one, we talked a little about the history of this incredible business, Rivalry Trophy, here with Brian McDonald. And in part two, I want to get into a couple of these trophies. Some of them I really don't know a lot about. And I consider myself an athletics historian, so I want to talk about them. And, you know, I want to know, as we kind of walk around, some of your insight into the Big Ten fan bases. What have you learned being a part of this?
Yeah.
I want to hear about it. So where do you want to start?
You know,
this is so cool.
I'd like to start with, this is kind of like my baby. This is the Slab of Bacon, and I love this, and it's not one of our best sellers by any means. If you look at it this way, it's a Minnesota trophy. You flip it upside down, it becomes a Wisconsin trophy. The whole premise behind this was that the winner was going to bring home the Slab of Bacon. And if you look on the back, it's got scores that go back to 1930. Now, the problem was, and I don't have the dates right, this trophy was lost sometime in the 50s. And so the axe took its place. But the crazy thing is, when they found this in Camp Randall, scores had been written up to 1970.
Interesting.
So it was gone for a while, but somebody was taking care of it.
It was about 20-ish.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But I love this one because it shows so well. I mean, you put a nail up there and you can hang it, and it's just not as. But the whole idea of bringing home the bacon, I thought was fantastic. So this is
honestly, we're at Fraser's. It looks like it should be hanging on the wall here at Fraser's or at a cabin up north or something.
Exactly. And this is one of the few trophies a few games. The only one I can think of that has two trophies. This one just doesn't travel. This one's still in Camp Randall. It's on display. So I've always, when we talk to people from schools, I've always told Minnesota, hey, if you win this game, demand the bacon. What are you doing? Get that back too.
I love it.
So the two trophies exchange hands, but it's
with fans today, I'm sure that with a little bit of a push, it'll be on. I love it.
I'm surprised they haven't stormed Camp Randall and taken it back. But
dude, that's great.
But I mean, everybody knows Floyd. Floyd is one of my favorites. This is Minnesota, Iowa.
Again, talk about the detail though that you put into this, in the mold and everything.
Yeah, well,
it's amazing.
The one detail is, and this is true of other trophies except for the jug, the actual Floyd has the scores on it. And one of the things we talked about with the schools was, do we want someone to buy a trophy that is dated the next year, that they feel like they've got one that's suddenly old?
Right.
And from our perspective, do we want one that if we don't sell them all, that suddenly these are old trophies? The jug, the score is such a prominent feature on it that the scores make the trophy essentially.
Absolutely.
But other ones where it's around the base, it's not as. So we decided to make this more generic, but in doing so, we also focus on everything else around the pig. So that was kind of. So with scores, a lot of these trophies do have them, but from our perspective, if someone's using it as a display piece, they don't want to have one, and then 3 years later feel like they've got an old trophy, and that was a factor.
I'm curious. Okay, this is almost impossible to replicate, although people are trying.
Sure.
I don't know if you saw on Twitter. The jug, I mean, you can find a Red Wing jug and paint it, and like this, and people have. An axe, you can probably replicate an axe, and I imagine some fans have.
Sure.
Something like this. Have you ever seen anybody or tried to do it before?
I haven't. I'm sure that it's been done.
But this is a big seller, right?
It is. It's one of our top three. And we do an annual event, our semi-annual, every other year at this point, called Fry Fest. Iowa has a celebration of Hayden Fry, who recently passed, in all things Iowa. The kickoff weekend, which is Labor Day weekend, they have a huge party. They bring back old players. It's a collector's show, a memorabilia show. They have a band at night. They had Joan Jett a couple years ago. I don't know why
sounds like my jam.
I don't know why every school doesn't do this, because it is a blast. And we
what do they call it?
They call it Fry Fest.
Okay.
And it's just a cool event.
For Hayden Fry, as you mentioned.
It's right outside Iowa City in Coralville, Iowa. Great little town, and you're right there. And everybody comes back for the opener, and then they're there on Friday. And we've been there, and it's awesome. So one year, this guy comes around and says, you can make one better than that. So he gives me the name of this company in Iowa. And we've always been, we've always been aware of the fact that it'd be nice if we could make these here. It's always been a thought of ours.
Yeah.
So this company goes through this process of saying how they would make a bigger Floyd, and they're talking about how they would do it. And so we're going back and forth, and then I'm waiting for the price tag. And I'm saying, okay, this could be really sweet if we could make Floyd of Rosedale in Iowa.
Yeah.
How awesome would that
Gosh.
be? A wood base, but in my mind I'm thinking, there's no way this is going to happen. So they come back with a price tag of $450. I'm like, okay. And they go, no, that's your price. And so I'm thinking, well, we're in Detroit, so we got to get all these there. It just, and our goal has always been to keep the price point under $100.
Yeah, that's tough.
And so not being able to do that, I mean, we've had fans ask about a life-size Paul Bunyan.
Of course.
Everything. And we'd love to do it, but economically and just getting it over here and doing that, it's just something that the cost would be so exorbitant for one person to do it that it doesn't work. But we certainly respect the fandom and the desire to have that. You know what I mean? So it's not that at all.
I want my supersize for real. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. But
so that's you mentioned Iowa, and listen, I'm from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up here, and I have pride in my state and my school and everything. But there is something different about Iowa people. I know that.
Yeah.
We have Iowa families, friends, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
One of their kids is named Hayden.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know what happens.
Yeah.
But there's a deep pride in who they are.
No doubt.
Did you sense that through this? Do you sense that through kind of this trophy, or tell us some stories about either Iowa or what you've experienced through the other fan bases?
All of them. And it's funny when they play the Floyd game, I'm watching it, and because I've dealt with the Minnesota athletic department, I've dealt with so many Gopher fans, so many Hawkeye fans. It's like, I mean, from our perspective, a certain team winning is better for us financially.
Yeah, I was going to wonder about that.
I mean, we like a balanced rivalry. We like it back and forth.
Sure.
But during that game, and the great thing about these trophies is, and this is, I think, one of the problems of the playoff, is it's almost like playoff or bust. But for a lot of fan bases, you win this game, and it really makes your season. And it's just one shot against a team that in most cases, you're pretty, you got a shot. Just, whether because of talent or because of emotion. So watching those games and having dealt with so many fans and met so many fans and sold so many trophies to these fans, it's really, you have an appreciation for every fan base.
That's cool.
And I know we kind of get tunnel vision. Oh, I'm a and we're good, they're bad.
Sure.
But it's made me much more of a Big Ten fan, and just an understanding of the Big Ten tradition. I mean, these trophies are Big Ten really specific. It's funny, when we first started the company, we had templates made. We thought Alabama Auburn play for an ODK Foy, and we're thinking, oh my God, it's going to sell millions of them. Well, this trophy is exchanged at the basketball game 3 months later. Nobody really knows about it. These things are Big Ten specific, really. I mean, and the passion behind them, the history behind them, the Oaken Bucket, the Elia Buck right here.
I'll tell you this, though, with the Oaken Bucket, so I went to business school. I was sharing earlier. Yeah. I went to business school at Indiana. And I never really had an appreciation for that, the Indiana-Purdue rivalry. I guess I knew it was there.
Yeah.
But I saw it played out in basketball and football and how much it meant. No idea. And I mean, that is I love this trophy. Yeah. I think it's sweet.
It's really cool. The I's and the P's hanging off. And just the fact that when, and we've had so many fans that want
do you sell like extra P's and extra I's?
It's funny you ask. When we had these made, we just had them made like that. And so people would get it and they'd say, listen, this is not accurate. The result scores are supposed to depict the result over time.
Yeah.
And so
IP is a chain,
exactly.
Effectively, yeah.
And so they would say, I'll pay anything for the accurate number. Listen, we don't charge you. We just don't have them. And so, I mean, in order to give them one, we would have to take them off a perfectly good trophy. So with recent orders, we just started ordering a whole bunch of I's and P's, and we have them on hand. So when the Indiana fan says, listen, I need 20 more I's, we just ship them out to them and say, here you go.
That is so funny. I love it.
But it's important. It matters.
Yeah,
and that's what you learn, is that every rivalry really matters.
So one thing I found, and I joked about this at the break, but if when PJ Fleck or Minnesota wins again, you're going to get a bunch of orders, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I know that. I know the market. This is real nerdy stuff, but I know the market for like the antique jug. They made little ceramic jugs in the 30s. There's pins from the 20s. These sell for hundreds of dollars, and it's not just Michigan fans. In fact, I think most of them people gobbling this up are Minnesota, like generations of Minnesota people.
Yeah,
they're a unique fan base too.
They are, and they're wonderful. And I every fan base has, so many great stories. And a story I was telling you earlier about the Spittoon.
Yeah, the Spittoon, right?
Spittoon was Michigan State.
Michigan State.
The Michigan State junior class president, I think it was 1953, bought the Spittoon in a Lansing antique store. And the goal was to fire up the team for the Indiana game so that they didn't overlook Indiana before Notre Dame, I think.
Right.
Just kind of, okay, we got to get something to get these guys fired up to play. Indiana at the time was struggling. Well, gentleman's name was Eugene McDermott. A couple years ago, he was falling in ill health, and he had heard about the fact that we had made replicas. In fact, Mark D'Antonio had sent him a message, and I believe sent the actual Spittoon for this guy. He lived in Pennsylvania at the time, essentially on his deathbed to see the trophy. So
the real trophy.
The real trophy.
Yeah.
Sent it out to him. And so D'Antonio sent a message. He loved it. And so the gentleman, after he passes, his daughter gives me an email, somehow gets a hold of us, knows that we make them, and asks that on the box we've got a story of every trophy. It's hard to read, but it's right here. Well, the Spittoon said MSU class president. She asked if we could put Eugene McDermott's name on the box. I'm like, of course. So the latest shipment we had in now has his name on it. We send a whole bunch of Spittoons, big and small, out to the family. And I think just the idea that his legacy was that he did this and there's something that people will remember him by.
I love it.
Was really important to them. And so we were thrilled to do it.
Dude, what a great story.
Yeah, but stories like that are really, it's why we enjoy doing what we do. We interact with fans. If there's a problem with the trophy, I'm the one that fixes it. You know what I mean? If UPS kicks it around and it ends up in 3 pieces, send one out the next day.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that can happen.
Yeah.
So here's my. Now, do you ship them with the Mace blue helmet?
No, we haven't done that in the past.
You don't just ship them with it?
No.
That's my attempt at teasing. Of course, I've lived through the rivalry, so I know darn well.
Yeah.
And of course, what's so great is it was a Spartan victory that really inspired all this.
Yeah, exactly.
So we should be thankful. Well, my axe, broke. You probably see me I couldn't get it back together.
Yeah.
And of course, it's in my possession. I exchanged this with my beloved brother,
yes,
who's a Spartan fan.
Uh-huh.
And I whittled my own little axe there.
Very nice.
And of course added the.
Well, you're very handy there.
Thank you. And this is my rewind trot from the local radio station. You gave me that because you need it. That's kind of mandatory now.
The teams do, but it becomes the accompaniment now. Green and white.
You got to get a kick out of it though.
Oh yeah.
The accoutrement.
Oh, and anytime the game, and really on social media, the pictures that show up of people holding these up, it's really cool for us. And the fact that it's just it's taken off, and it's something that we did that's successful and people have taken a liking to.
Right.
It really is what matters to us.
Well, and not to get syrupy, but part of the reason, one outcome of these passion projects is you're extending a kind of a very cool culture that is an important part of our lives, and it is bigger than football. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of issues and social issues and things that play out in sports, but it also connects us. It reveals a lot about us, and through history, and I know that as a historian, you know that.
Yeah.
But to get in touch with this, and Big Ten probably does it better than anybody, the rivalry trophies.
No doubt.
To connect with these fan bases must be a thrill, and it sounds like the story's still going for you.
Yeah, it is, and we're looking at expanding. One of the things was, we realized how Big Ten this is. We're talking to Army about doing the Commander-in-Chief's trophy.
That seems like that could be big.
It could, but some of these, the newer trophies are so elaborate and beautiful that it becomes a real challenge. That perfection, or getting close to perfection that we talked about, becomes even more and more. So we feel like we've done, the big ones. We're working on the Stanford Axe and things like that, but these newer ones present a different kind of challenge, and it's exciting too. But these could be getting these made takes months. It's not just one of those things where someone says, "Hey, can you make the?" It's like, well, we'd love to. We'd love to make the Keg of Nails trophy.
You're right.
But we got to get licensing. We got to get it approved. Both schools look at it. With the microscope, and and so there's a lot of there's a lot of moving parts.
Like the axe, it's dull here. There must have been. Can't be too sharp, You
have no idea how many times we joked about, wow, it'd be horrible, but if a Minnesota fan hit a Wisconsin fan over the head with this and it made the news, what free publicity that would be.
Oh God, dude, that's awesome.
But of course, we don't want to do. But
I'm sure it's happened.
I'm sure it has too. But these things, these things can be. Yeah, you got to keep that in mind.
We are talking about Wisconsin fans. Yes, and the Slab of Bacon's been busted over someone's head at some point.
Someone's taking a shot to the head.
I love it. It's great. I love this stuff. And look, and I will plug Tommy Roberts. I mean, he bought, a 30-cent water jug in 1903. Obviously, this isn't elaborate. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the score, how important the score is.
Yeah.
The score was on the first one.
Yep.
It was a big part of it. And to think that it came to this, and it has ties to the Big Ten and the Michigan State rivalry, and here we are, and it's a business, and I love it.
It's all intertwined, and it's really cool.
Yeah, very cool. That's the story of Rivalry Trophy. If you have any questions, any follow-ups you want us to do, this was a ton of fun, man.
Greg, my pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
I love it.
All right, man.
All right, thank you.